All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I am the Vice Chair of the Human Rights Commission. We're going to start this evening with a round of introductions. We'll start in the room and then we will pass it to the members on Zoom. So I'll pass to my right.
Christina Ballard. I'm a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission and I live in Ward 7.
Celine Coleman, one of the commissioners, and I live in Ward 1.
We'll take it to Zoom. Kelsey, do you mind kicking us off?
Not at all. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a commissioner.
Commissioner Murray, we cannot hear you.
I can hear you, by the way, and I'm on Zoom.
Oh,
So
okay. So this is the them problem.
we can say all sorts of things. Just kidding.
Can they hear any of us?
I don't think so.
I think that they've got us muted.
I have a feeling they're figuring it out.
Well, hello. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
How are you, Jackie?
Doing well.
Give us a second, folks online. We're troubleshooting the system audio. There we go. I think we have you guys now.
Yay! Yeah, you can hear us?
Loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. I love it. We'll try this again. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns. I am a commissioner on this commission, and I will pass it to Jackie.
Hello, I am Commissioner Jackie Roche. I live in Ward 4. We're doing that, and I'll pass it over. Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Marys. I'm a commissioner on this commission, and I'm on the Disability Rights Task Force that is a part of this commission, and I live closest to Ward 5.
Thank you. Before we move on to agenda item number 2, I do just want to make a quick announcement that our meetings are recorded and broadcasted live on YouTube. Should have said that at the top, so my apologies for that. We will move on to agenda item number 2, which is public comment. Judging by the audience, I'm going to guess we do have some public comment this evening. No?
For the presentation.
Oh. Okay, never mind. Mainly here for the presentation. I will invite Linnell to provide any comments you would like.
Okay. I don't actually have any comments specifically right now. Just always thank you guys for being here and for doing what you're doing.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here this evening, Linnell.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 4, bias crime update. I will invite our liaison from the Salem Police Department.
Good evening. My name is Robert Dowd. I am a sergeant with the Salem Police Department. I currently oversee our personnel and training unit, and I am the police department's liaison here with the Human Rights Commission. This evening, I have 2 items to discuss. On the 25th of October in Southeast Salem, there was an individual who had been terminated from their employment, and in the course of being terminated, used racial slurs towards their former employer. And then subsequently, when the person was to come and pick up their final paycheck, the paycheck had been misplaced, and they again sent text message racial slurs towards their employer. The use of just verbal use of racial slurs is not a crime, so therefore this is classified as a bias incident. No arrest was made. There has been attempts by the investigating officer to conduct follow-up with the employee. Unfortunately, all of the contact information that the employer had has not led to the officer making contact with the former employee. The second incident comes on the 6th of November in Northeast Salem. This was an issue of a unhoused individual with mental health issues outside of one of the local service provider locations. The person was standing in the roadway, and when somebody walked up to ask why they were standing in the roadway, the person experienced mental health issues, again, used racial slurs toward the person who had confronted them. The person who the racial slurs were directed toward did not wish to pursue any charges. Again, it was just verbal use of racial slurs, which is not a crime. And therefore, this was classified as a bias incident. There was no arrest in that incident.
Thank you for that, Sergeant Dowd. Are there any questions for Sergeant Dowd from the commissioners or anybody in the audience that would like to ask questions? Okay, seeing none. Sergeant Dowd, are you also presenting on the Salem Police Department's 2025-2027 strategic plan? Was that you on the agenda item?
I don't believe that I was prepped to.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Information item.
okay. Well, thank you so much, Sergeant Dowd. Appreciate it. Who's discussing action item number 4B? All right, we are going to move on to agenda item 4C, complaints of discrimination that were not brought forward to Salem Police Department. Do we have any?
There were 4 complaints that were submitted. If I remember correctly, I don't have the report in front of me, but for the month of October, the majority of them were housing issues and mental health.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to agenda item 4D, reporting barriers forum update. So just a quick recap, just for our audience and fellow commissioner members, the Human Rights Commission has been planning a forum to discuss barriers to reporting, specifically for undocumented individuals and immigrants and migrant families. I'm just given current trends, both locally and nationally. It's our goal to provide information for those families on how they can better report crimes of discrimination, but then also communicate more clearly with the Human Rights Commission and seek assistance from local organizations that serve that population. So I will pass it off to our staff liaison to provide updates on that forum, if we have any. I was hoping Chair Lara Midkiff would be, he's been the one taking lead on that. All right, so we are moving right along to agenda item 4E, Intercultural Cities Program Presentation.
Hello. Hello all. First, I would like to offer my thanks to everyone here tonight for attending this, and additionally offer a special thanks and acknowledgement to Gretchen Bennett, who throughout this process has lent an incredible amount of help and support. So that means a lot to us. Thank you. Alrighty, so my name is Shiv Ranjan, and tonight we're going to be presenting on a sectoral overview of Salem through an intercultural lens. So if you could please move to the next slide. So just a brief bit of background about who I am. I'm a Willamette student, and this entire project was started in my freshman year when I was in Professor Joyce Bowen's freshman seminar, which was called Biopolitics of People on the Move. The seminar focused on migration studies, and through this, I was introduced to the Intercultural Cities Program. The Intercultural Cities Program, or ICC, is an initiative that was founded by the Council of Europe. And to put it simply, its goal is to help aid cities with the integration of migrants and helping cities additionally to manage their diversity as a resource and an advantage. The ICC was founded in 2008, and it currently has 162 global members. So for the past few years, Professor Millen and I have been working toward the ultimate goal of Salem becoming an ICC member, and we're very enthused about this whole initiative. This work has taken us many different places, as you can see on screen. I was lucky enough to receive a research grant my freshman summer to visit Europe, specifically visiting the Council of Europe in Strasbourg and the ICC headquarters, in addition to multiple different ICC member cities across Europe. Additionally, Professor Millen was able to travel to Rochester, Minnesota, another ICC member city, and was able to speak to the mayor there about the initiative. And this connection kind of led to this whole project and why we're presenting to you, as there was a key revelation. So briefly, I want to put a pin in that. And could you please move to the next slide? So before I get to this specific project, I want to do a very quick kind of intro on the ICC. And I like to break it into kind of two main camps, the network and the index. So the network is comprised, obviously, of all the member cities across the globe. And so what's so exciting about this is the mutual support and aid that members in this network can provide. Additionally, by joining the network, Salem would stand to gain, as I said, 162 global partners, which is pretty exciting. Additionally, all these partners, they're able to lend invaluable insights to us regarding beneficial practices, essentially what has worked for them and what hasn't when it comes to the integration of refugees, migrants, and the overall management of diverse populations. All right, so the next is the index, and it may look kind of boring. Oh, sorry, could you go back? There we go. Yeah, on the right side, it may look a little bit boring, but in my opinion, this is one of the more exciting parts of what the ICC is. So what you're looking at is the intercultural profile that was generated for Rochester, Minnesota. And so in this, the ICC sends out members from Europe to assess these cities and go through sector by sector and explore each one and analyze each one. And the benefit of this data is the insight that these stand to gain. It's like kind of essentially an audit. And the review illustrates where the gaps are in each sector, and additionally provides suggestions and recommendations on how to fill said gaps. So now circling back to the key revelation that I brought up, what it was Professor Millen and the mayor said to her that, you know, even after doing all the formalities of becoming an ICC member, like the mayor or another high up official sending a letter of intent to the ICC, biggest kind of barrier or hurdle in their way was actually filling out and completing the index. It took them months because of the differences between governance in the US and Europe. So in Europe, as you might know, it's much more bureaucratic and it's much more of a top-down kind of setup. Whereas in the US, as you all are in city government, I'm sure you understand that it's kind of difficult to work with all these different stakeholders and like get them into one room. And in order to do a kind of a full comprehensive review of all these sectors, you need to work with all these stakeholders. So our idea with this project was we had a pretty competitive selection process to select a group of interns. And our thought was we're going to each give them a sector to look at and kind of front load as much of the work as possible of this generating an intercultural profile in the case that down the road, Salem does become an ICC city or wants to seek ICC membership, so that we can kind of remove as many barriers as possible. And, you know, just kind of closing, I want to say, we hope that today's presentation will lead us forward in this goal. So I'd like to pass it off to Alexandra to present about the health sector.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexandra Kozik. I'm a senior at Willamette, and my focus of research was on healthcare and public health for newcomers as a part of the Core Health, Not a Side program, which feels very close to the ICC program, the main idea. Guided by the World Health Organization's 6 building blocks: service delivery, workforce, information, medical products, financing, and governance, I examined how the United States National Standards for Linguistic Services translate these principles into action through leadership, trained staff, interpreters, and continuous improvement. Oregon already has a strong floor. Healthier Oregon expands through Oregon Health Plan, regardless of the immigration status, and state law requires certified interpreters, and federal rules, they require free language assistance no matter what. Next. What I did, I paired reading with a field work across Salem and Oregon. Then I tested promises with what's done on the practice through interviews and site checks, and those people whom I got opportunity to interview. And what I found is that integration beats parallel services. When newcomers use the same clinics, records, and insurance, and language support is into the system, tied into it, care is fair and more fast. Language access is an infrastructure. Salem Health shows what works already. Staff ask for preferred language upfront, place a room sign for patients who need an interpreter, and Spanish runs 24/7 there, with Ukrainian, American Sign Language, and Chuukese on house. Other languages are connected by video, phone, or scheduled on-site agencies. Discharge is the weak link. Spanish has templates, but provider free text is not auto-translated. For other languages, staff review English plan with an interpreter and write key points by hand and let it go, not print it or anything. Real partners close those gaps, like Salem for Refugees. They enroll people into the Oregon Health Plan within days. And case managers with lived experience coordinate in different variety of languages like Swahili, Arabic, Ukrainian, Russian, Dari, and Spanish. So small mistakes don't just snowball. With Salem Free Clinics, that was interesting that patients thought that if there is a free clinics, it means that doctors are not authorized, they're not licensed, which showed the misconception and misunderstandings. And in reality, all of those doctors, nurses are licensed. With City Title VI lead, they push no run door access and 6th grade readability across public sectors and public touch points with iSpeak cards availability. Here is my recommendations I'm asking for. At Salem Health Hospital, we need to expand coverage where it is thin, especially at night and on the weekends, using the state's free training pipeline. Also, Salem for Refugees shared that people may miss the visits because texts arrive in English and from unknown numbers, and appointments get canceled when no interpreter is booked. And reminders should go out in the patient language from non-contact with interpreters pre-scheduled, and that people know from whom they receive messages. Also, before discharge with a doctor, make sure an interpreter reviews the plan with the patient, confirms understanding through teachback method, and provides written instructions, plus pharmacy reminders, refills in the patient's language. If Salem makes language access automatic from registration to the pill bottle, people will leave with care they can understand and medicine they can read. This is belonging by design. Thank you for it.
Alexandra, I do want to stop right there. Thank you so much for your presentation, and the gentleman before you, I'm sorry I forgot your name. I appreciate both of you guys here. I do want to just pause because I saw some of my fellow commissioners taking some notes, and I do want to provide an opportunity for them to ask questions before we continue moving on to presenters. Are there any questions so far for Alexandra?
Actually, yes. I see that you have a note on there, add to every summary of prescription pills, text in their language. So people are being discharged without instructions for taking their medication in their language?
It's only in English, so sometimes people would just not understand what they want, what the doctor prescribed to them, and when they would go to the pharmacy, they would not know the dosage. Like there's a gaps with that.
Okay, thank you.
To that extent, they're leaving with discharge summaries strictly in English, but I'm guessing that the healthcare providers then also aren't communicating with the pharmacy of choice to ensure that the medication, that they're getting the proper medications. So it sounds like there's just a huge, once somebody's discharged, the care essentially stops.
In pharmacies, there is available Spanish translators, but it's not all of the pharmacies, so it depends from what locations the person pick. And there is a miscommunication when the person receives this receipt, what refills they need, they would not know what to do with it.
So it's
Wow.
like the doctor.
Yeah.
Send the prescription to.
Yeah, wow. Interesting. I did not know that. So I will admit that I learned something new just now. Are there any other commissioners that have questions?
Hello, Commissioner Roche. I missed the beginning. Is this an informational thing of just raising awareness of and asking for our opinion on implementing this recommendation? Sorry if I missed something in there.
Yeah, that is my understanding. This is an informational report and presentation at this time.
Okay. Is that part of, because I'm newer to this, providing the translation in different languages, I'm assuming, would that be considered the burden of the hospital, the burden of the pharmacy with the additional expenses that they need to pay for translation? Or is there some kind of funding that they get for that? Like, do you guys know anything about that and the financial burden that could take on for our healthcare industry, and like, what are the dynamics of that?
The patients itself should receive, no matter what, translation for free. And as a funding for the hospitals, it's provided by state and federally. Are covered there, and Salem Health Hospital already has on the place range of interpreters with Russian and Spanish, and on the phone translations.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah, I was just wondering, for Salem Health, was that primarily like the primary care facilities, the hospital, specialties, or just all the above? Okay.
I interviewed the Salem Health specifically, but what I received, that was primary care also.
Any additional questions for Alexandra? Lynell, I also welcome you to ask questions if you have any. Seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation. We will invite our next presenter out to the podium.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the commission. My name is Lane Schaefer. I'm a junior at Willamette University. I'm studying public health, Spanish, and data science. And my sector focus for this project was housing and social services, which, as you can imagine, is very important for immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers as they're getting to Salem to make sure that they have the services that they need. So some of the questions that I started off with were, what are the barriers to accessing housing in Salem? What's the actual housing availability? I think, none of us are oblivious to the fact that we have an incredibly tight housing market right now, and we are lacking housing in Salem and Portland and Oregon, and in, what were historical difficulties for migrants and refugees in Salem. So looking at like the Chinese population in downtown Salem and how they were pushed out of housing in downtown, and historical difficulties for the Hispanic population, farm worker housing in Salem, and then what's working in Salem. So going to the next slide, the way I structured my research was by reaching out to community organizations who were facilitating social services and housing and doing a literature review to see what was working the best in Salem. So I talked to Sarah Crawford and interviewed her at Blossom Garden. She's the housing coordinator with Salem for Refugees, and Blossom Gardens is a relatively new affordable housing complex specifically for migrants and refugees. Opened in May. It's about 60% capacity right now, leased out. And it was really cool to see what's working there in terms of how they built out the space and added like parks and soccer fields for kids. I also talked to the coordinator at Mano a Mano, which is a food bank and family program specifically for are targeting Spanish speakers. And I interviewed her in Spanish and was able to learn a lot more about how food programs are working, especially with recent cuts to SNAP. It seemed like something that was very pertinent to look at. And then I also met with Jenny Barishoff, who started Ariana House, which is a safe house for asylum seekers, was part of the beginnings of Salem for Refugees. And I got to learn a lot about the recent changes and pivots that have come as national policies have changed regarding immigration and refugees. So some of my key findings were that on-site resources at housing facilities are super important. So Blossom Gardens is a stellar example of that. They provide care navigation for healthcare. They provide interpretation on site. They offer English classes and a lot of different resources to help newcomers navigate the complex systems that they might not be able to without English proficiency, and also designing with immigrants and refugees in mind. You know, they knew that they were not going to need as many parking garages because their families didn't have as many cars, and so they converted those into an art house. Things like that can help make spaces really welcoming for people. Also, there's a lot of knowledge and process barriers. That's something that I learned while working with the folks at Mano a Mano. There's a lot of resources in Salem. There's not a lot of awareness. So it can be difficult for people to access free law services if they don't speak English, or they're not sure where to go for those services, or if they're worried about there being some kind of government intervention there and, you know, I don't know, not being able to access those services. So bringing resources to the community is really crucial, whether that be through Mano a Mano has a food bank van that they bring out to different communities. They bring out to housing complexes to bring the resources right to people. And then also the needs are growing in new ways. So there's not as many refugee newcomers right now because of changes in federal policy. So like Salem for Refugees is pivoting to focus on those who are in the community right now and have been here for years, and making sure that they're, you know, getting work training and English proficiency classes so that they can gain self-sufficiency in Salem. And then last, there's somewhat of a disconnect between government and community in some spaces as a result of recent sentiments that are kind of contrary to inviting immigrants and refugees into our communities. And there's also this kind of idea of if we can't vote, do our elected officials care? And so I would encourage more connection between the community and partnering with community organizations. And then moving on to some of my other recommendations and findings in the next slide. So some of the most important things that I heard were accessibility to work, which includes English classes so that people are better able to join the workforce in Salem. Childcare services, especially for single parents, was something crucial that I heard, because it's really hard to start off in that first month if you don't have access to childcare services. Again, like I said, awareness about resources and support to access them, whether that be care navigators or interpreters, and then bringing social services to communities. Having a community health worker present at a community event like a cafecito, where people can come together in a place where they feel safe and also receive those social services.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions? Seeing none, are there additional presenters? All right, we'll invite the next presenter up.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Letitia J, and my sector was covering public works and transportation in Salem, in the city of Salem. Particularly, I was concerned with examining how the city provides and maintains infrastructure projects and services that are essential to citizens' welfare and the quality of life. This includes bridges, roads, water system, treatment, and so on. On the right-hand side of the slide, I have here a list that I pulled from the City of Salem Public Works website. This essentially outlines the specific aspects that fall under the City of Salem's jurisdiction, and I use this as a guide as I carried out my research so far. I particularly focused on what feedback mechanisms exist within public works and transportation that direct feedback from the community to the city. And I also looked at attempts to address equity and for the city to reach out back to communities that have trouble accessing resources or who don't speak English as a first language, and so on. Next slide, please. So far in my research, I've interviewed Julie Hansen, the Transportation Planning Manager, and Robert Chandler, the Assistant Public Works Director. I also observed climate mapping tools, Salem's transportation plans, stormwater master plans, and other plans for capital projects to ascertain what kind of other things could disproportionately impact migrants and our refugee community. I found that public works, and particularly transportation, has done pretty well in these. Sorry, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes. Yes. So I found that public works, and particularly transportation, has done well in these three main regards: the Salem in Motion, Equity Roundtable, and Equity Scoring Tool, as far as communication goes. This has shown to me that mechanisms do indeed exist within public works, especially transportation, in order to address and include underserved communities and their perspectives. These, in my opinion, reflect a conscious effort to connect to these people that may not be familiar with their resources or how to reach out to officials. But in public works as a whole, particularly in water systems and in water treatment, mechanisms are a little less active than the examples I have mentioned above. Feedback via email and from neighborhood associations remain pretty common ways for other people to have their voices heard. But the thing is with emails, not everybody may have access to internet as same as everybody else. English may also be a barrier as well. And with neighborhood associations, for example, they're only as effective as the people who participate in them, who have the time to participate in them. A more active form of communication that reaches out to these affected homeowners and residents, I think, would be helpful. Next slide, please. My next steps include looking at what initiatives public works, especially transportation, are involved in. This includes especially the Equity Roundtable that I mentioned before, in which the transportation manager and other representatives are partaking in, and talking to the community leaders that also attend these meetings and evaluate if these meetings are, if they feel that these meetings are addressing the needs that they feel need to be addressed. Another step would be exploring options for more active communication in more areas of public works, and not just relying on people knowing who to contact and knowing who to reach. Salem in general is growing and may not always have, people don't always have the same personal connections with their officials, especially if language is an issue. Which is why looking at connections with neighborhood associations between the city and the neighborhoods, I see those as room for improvement. But yes, that's everything I have for you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? We've got one from Commissioner Ballard.
Letitia, did you yourself attend any neighborhood association meeting?
Not yet. These meetings are every 2 months. So the next one is early December, I believe. The last one was early October, and I just missed that one. I had my meeting with Julie after that meeting in October. So, but yes, I do intend on attending the one in December if I can make it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Roche.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for this presentation. I left the CATC, which is the Community Advisory Traffic Committee, I believe is the acronym for the Human Rights Commission, because my time is limited. And this is the kind of stuff that we talked about with the equity rating, like all of those things. And so from my time in there, we only ever had one, from what I recall, we only had one neighborhood association representative present. And it was very, very rarely attended, but there's a lot of good information and a lot of feedback that neighborhood association could give. So I would encourage, that's one avenue for the associations to connect with what is going on and what's coming down the pipeline. And if they have any concerns, that's what that committee helps with. So good job on this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
There any other questions? Seeing none, we'll invite the next presenter up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Claire Kiselnicki. I'm a current senior at Willamette University, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Salem's Parks, Recreation, and Public Space sector. I'm specifically going to be focusing on how these spaces can improve accessibility alongside the current language and access barriers that exist, including funding and the more general cultural dimension of parks. So first, I want to kind of provide a research overview, and I want to start by talking about why this sector is important. I think parks and public spaces can kind of be overlooked when considering important sectors for immigrant communities, but it's very integral to have a free public space where immigrant communities can access and enjoy leisure and public spaces outside of their smaller community areas. And so making sure cultural initiatives are implemented is very important for them. So looking at the broader scale of cultural initiatives within parks, I looked at the National Recreation and Parks Association, which is the federal nonprofit association for all park services. Anyone involved in park systems can become a member of this service, and they have annual conferences where they provide informational conferences as well as grants that they provide to individuals within park systems. And just this past year, the NRPA spent over $3.9 million in grant funding to 136 communities. Alongside this, they also helped pass the Outdoors for All Act, which provides federal funding to underserved populations, specifically like immigrant communities. And then when we're looking at the smaller scope of Salem's park system specifically, I think it's important to mention that Salem overall has 90 parks, which are not all developed yet. But within that, they have 48 neighborhood parks and 11 community parks. So next slide, please. So in my key findings throughout my research, to get some more information directly from the Park Services, I interviewed with Jennifer Keller, who is the current director of Salem's Parks and Recreation Services. And talking to her, I just wanted to kind of learn about the current cultural initiatives that are being implemented throughout Salem's parks. And she talked to me about how some bilingual signage is available in the parks, which are mostly in Spanish, but it is very minimal. And alongside that, on their website, there is only one Spanish public use facility permit available. The rest of the permits are only available in English, and the website does not have any other bilingual information available, which I did find as a whole in my research. But while talking to her, she specifically mentioned that accessibility is a goal of the department, but due to limited funds, especially during COVID-19, upkeep has been the priority for them. So I think when looking at this research, it's important to understand different funding avenues that are accessible. And alongside this, just recently in 2021, the Safety and Livability 10-year bond was passed, which can be utilized for many different things. A lot of it is for upkeep, but they also take public comment and opinion and said that they would be open to the use of this bond for cultural initiatives. And alongside this, I do want to mention that they are not currently a member of the NRPA due to a lack of funding from COVID-19, but they just received a 5-year levy, which will allow them to regain membership. So next slide, please. So moving on to my next steps for the parks departments, as I mentioned previously, rejoining and utilizing the NRPA will be specifically helpful for funding issues. Due to their grant funding, applying for the grant funding, especially through the support of the ICC, will greatly help them get through any initiative goals that they have that they weren't able to implement before due to funding issues. And alongside the funding problem, I think it's really important to specifically assess immigrant communities' use and needs for parks. Understanding how they are and aren't utilizing parks and then reporting it back to the Parks Department and the advisory board is going to be very helpful in getting these initiatives through. So that is all I have. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions from any of our fellow commissioners? No. All right, Commissioner Coleman.
I don't know if like during the interview with the parks person, if you were able to see like specific parks where I guess minorities or immigrant communities were using more often, especially if there were gaps in regards to like the permits or like applications they had to fill out.
Yeah, that was discussed a little bit, specifically with the current grant they received in funding. I kind of based it off a demographic map and kind of to see where are parks located in Salem versus where different populations are located. And there are 2 parks currently being remodeled with that funding. But as she mentioned, it's kind of limited, and she did not mention any specific resources for information about who is or isn't utilizing the services. So
Any other questions? Commissioner O'Shea.
Do you know how much it is annually to be a member of the NRPA?
I do not know off of the top of my head. That is not something Jennifer mentioned in our interview.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Are there any other presenters? Okay. We'll invite the next presenter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reina Ramirez, and I'm sent for in Willamette University, and my sector is public safety. Public safety basically means the protection for the of the resident from emergency, crime, and natural disasters. In Salem, Oregon, this work is carried out by 2 departments. The first one is the Salem Police Department, who is responsible for the law enforcement, crime prevention, and community policing. And the second one is the Salem Fire Department, who provides fire suppression, emergency medical service, and disaster response. Both departments operate 24/7 in coordination to the 911 system. Here in Salem is the Willamette Valley Communication Center. Next slide. My research was through readings from the city of Salem and interviews with people who don't speak English, and with the strategic communication and initiative manager from the police department, Angela Fendrick. My share was based on securing neighborhoods and business, language barriers requesting help, community engagement, connection between employees and community members, and understanding the strategic plans for both departments. Keeping in mind that this plan change frequently because both departments work for the safety of a community, building trust with our community in the pursuit of excellence. My key findings was increased communication and outreach. Both departments are working in giving our resident a voice, treating everyone with respect and dignity, making fair decisions and acting in a ruthless way, actively engage with our community, and engage employment retention and professional development. Some steps that I would like to make sure is communication, well, spread all of this information and resource available in Salem to the community, mainly for those who don't speak English. This will be made from jobs to employees, employees to home, or school to children and children to homes. Making more affordable, like the way of how people can avoid the fear of requesting help.
Are there any questions from our fellow commissioners?
Yeah, did Angie share whether that would be from like the communication side of things? Like, would it be the communications personnel that would be reaching out to the farm labor workers? Or like at children's events, or would it be like higher level police, say like deputy chief or the chief? I don't know if she shared that, but.
Yeah, we thought about how they are trying to implement communication to WhatsApp because there is the most important app that no English speaker use. But this is a kind of difficult because there is a lot of people who have like do not have like the good answer or a good understanding using this technology. So we're talking about the implementation of meetings with, for example, the farmers to they to share the information about the public safety, and then these farmers share to the employers.
I do have a follow-up question, just one though. In addition to working with the Salem Police, were you guys able to reach out to like Marion County sheriffs just due to the Lancaster discrepancy in regards to whether it's in the city or outside of the city limits? Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of the commissioners? No, we will bring up our next presenter.
My name is Merritt, and I'm here to talk about the emergency preparedness sector. So upfront, emergency preparedness is important to look at through an intercultural lens. We know this because we have seen how emergencies only worsen existing disparities and injustices. And it's important to look at it through this lens so that we can help close those gaps before emergencies happen. So there are some key areas listed that I looked at: insurance, who's involved, organizations, infrastructure, alerts, communication is a big one. Resource distribution, rebuilding process. What does that look like for communities? So as an overview of the research I did, I asked some key questions about what hazards exist, what resources are available, and where does Salem have room for growth? For my research, I looked both academically at theory and at practical things, looking at Salem's annual reports. I got an opportunity to sit down with Greg Walsh, who was the former emergency preparedness coordinator for Salem, but is now in the same role at Marion County, and was able to just also have informal conversations with other Salem residents. Some things that I found, one big overall theme was communication, which is critical in emergency situations. Active communication ahead of time, in terms of preparedness, going into communities, talking to them before emergencies happen, and not expecting people to come to you. You know, really bringing the resources out there. Working with community organizations, things that communities know best, know themselves best, asking what they need. One thing that came up a lot was barriers to preparedness. There's a 2-week ready plan, but not everyone can do that because either you don't have the financial ability to purchase all of those items, you don't have the place to store them, or maybe you don't even have the time. Another thing is insurance. Post-disaster is a big thing. Navigating that, especially if you don't speak English, especially if you're not used to American bureaucracy and insurance lingo, is very difficult. Finally, also promoting the existing resources that Salem has, because Salem has a lot of good resources right now that are underutilized. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I have one. Did Greg Walsh happen to share with you what he thinks the biggest concerns or challenges would be helping immigrant populations in the response and recovery aspect for immigrant communities
Yeah.
following an all hazards event?
So one big thing is after emergencies, there's a bunch of different organizations that come to help. One problem is where kind of the line between government and nonprofit is, because a lot of people get redirected towards different nonprofits, but not all nonprofits are ready to handle people who don't speak English.
Yeah.
And they're not all prepped to do that kind of cultural translation as well. And so it's the idea of where, up until where is it our responsibility to also be helping people with things that the NGOs can't fill in.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, we'll invite the next presenter.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Caitlin Bice Rosales. I'm here in front of you for a different reason. I am a political science and sociology major at Willamette, and today I will be discussing communication and media for you. Slide, please. So as a general sector overview, my sector covers the overall dispersal of information throughout Salem. So that can come from PSA, notices, emergency warnings, government updates, and also just silly, fun social media posts. And I've noticed through my research that the city of Salem has strategic communication methods, and they work with different programs to provide knowledge and different types of knowledge and information across Salem. And they try very hard to make sure that they communicate regardless of possible technological or language or financial barriers. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through the branches of communication I found through my research, very informally arranged from most to least popular, just from my opinion. And then there are social media, the City of Salem websites, the news articles around Salem, specifically the Salem Reporter and the Statesman's Journal, TV, radio, broadcasting services, as well as flyering, and then, of course, the classic word of mouth. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over some of the interviews that I conducted, so you can see all of them there. I will specifically highlight Aaron Neff, the Salem Public Information Officer, and then Capital Community Media and all those wonderful people there, specifically because they supplemented most of my research, and I had quite a few conversations with each of them. But of course, I appreciate everybody on that list. But yeah, I got most of my research from there. I tried to cover as much different sectors of communication across Salem as I could. Next slide, please. So as for my key findings through interviews, media, just general web searching, I found that there are currently quite a few actions done for immigrants and refugees. So there are resources out there. So just as an example, I know Capital Community Media, who I believe is broadcasting this right now, as well as like Chariot's meetings, they always make sure that their media is translated into Spanish. And the city of Salem is consistently working to hire different professionals and different new employees that can speak as many languages as possible. I know I met with one member of like the Salem Police Station who was recently hired, and he also speaks ASL and is the first ASL interpreter in the city of Salem, which I thought was pretty cool. But there are, of course, actions for improvement and then further consideration. So resources are very much available, but they're difficult to find and access. So they're there, but for me, who has access to a computer, you still have to go digging a little bit to find specific resources. So for example, like available housing. And then I would like to see more communication opportunities for those who don't have technology available to them. So consider being a refugee, not having access to technology, and not knowing where to get emergency warnings and even lessons for English, if that's something you're interested in. And then I would also just ask for continued consideration of how to effectively reach out to immigrants. But that's it from me. Thank you.
Are there any questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Coleman.
Looking at your list of the most to least frequently used modes of communication, do you think any of those should switch, where the city should incorporate more, I don't know, I'm not looking at it, but more word of mouth or flyers?
That's a very good question. Thank you. During my interviews, I was definitely trying to ask more questions about what are the other options if technology isn't available. And a couple of them, they had answers, but I kind of wish that there were more. I can't think of a separate idea other than flyering or word of mouth, because I know if, especially in emergency situations, if you can't reach people through radio, you're going to have the Salem and Salem Police and Fire Department going around yelling what to do in that situation. And so there are options, but I would like to see more. I'm not sure if that answers that question. Was that helpful? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Are there any additional questions? I'll have one. What recommendations would you provide to the Salem Police Department or the Salem Fire Department in terms of hiring or looking for candidates that could help in terms of communication? You had mentioned your thing, if Facebook or social media goes out, that oftentimes it's going to be officers that are going to be interacting and engaging with these individuals. And then you had also highlighted that Salem Police Department, I think, recently hired an officer who also is fluent in ASL. I wanted to know if you happen to have any other communications recommendations for either of those departments on how they could better communicate with the public or engage talent that speak additional languages other than English to communicate with the community, both in blue skies and gray skies.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's kind of a lame answer, but honestly, just for them to try to have that in mind and to go into their position knowing that they're going to do their original job, but then are also going to have a specific focus on reaching out to more members of the community. I think just having that thought in mind and that goal is a great starting point in communicating. And then as for just general next steps, I asked a couple of these questions specifically with the police department, and they said because that person was recently hired, they're still going through the motions and figuring out like a plan, especially for the next year. But I'd say mostly to focus on like non-technological methods of communication, just so that it's very accessible from the get-go and you don't have to have like a cell phone, computer, or internet to access it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, we'll invite the next presenter. Hold on one second. Linnell, go ahead.
Oops, sorry. Thank you for all of this presentation and the information, and especially on the communication piece. I just really love the aspect of finding alternate ways to connect to people without necessarily using technology, because people who are living in poverty also are going to have a challenge in necessarily having technology available, working, ways to charge it, and even being able to use it. So I think there's overlap in reaching out to immigrants, and some of the concepts that would also apply to people living in poverty who don't have access to technology on a regular basis. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Shea.
Yeah, one thing I haven't heard any talk about is a lot of the different immigrants or refugees come from religious backgrounds, and there's huge communities that have, the churches involved and stuff. Have you guys worked with or talked with any of the churches and how they are helping communicate, as those are more than likely trusted individuals by their same shared culture and language? Just a random thought for anyone.
At this point, we haven't looked into that, but that's a good suggestion as we continue our research next semester to talk to churches and other religious organizations.
You can go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
yes. So good evening, everyone. I'm Maya Harrison. I'm a member of the project's leadership team. And so my part's very short, just to summarize sort of what we've learned and where this project is going next. So as you've heard tonight, our interns have done a tremendous amount of research in a very short amount of time. It was about a month that they did this research, and it was looking at top down, so talking to sector officials and leaders in each of the sectors that they were in charge of. And we think they've done an excellent job in helping us understand how each sector plays an important role in intercultural integration in Salem. And now that you've heard of our primary or preliminary research, the question is, where does this project go next? And for next semester, we're going to be conducting community-based participatory action research, which means we're going to be going into the community and actually talking to the communities that are affected. So talking to refugees, asylees, and immigrants, because as a lot of our interns mentioned, there is a lot of goodwill in Salem and efforts to help these communities, but the real question is whether they're actually benefiting from the projects that exist. And so we want to learn from refugees' lived experiences and see where there's room for improvement. And our ultimate goal, just to reiterate what Shiv said at the beginning of our presentation, is to become an ICC member city. And we think Salem is in an excellent position to gain from the resources of the over 150 other member cities to learn from what they're doing to improve intercultural initiatives within our city. And ultimately, the ICC's goal is to make more inclusive cities that help all citizens, not just refugees and immigrant communities, but every single city or citizen to have a very social, cohesive community. So next slide, please. So we'd encourage you, if you have any questions, to contact our interns directly, as they were the ones doing the research. But we want to thank you so much for your time and listening to all of our research and our presentation. We really appreciate it, so thank you.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners? Go ahead.
This one, will you come back and let us know the results of your discussions in the community-based research?
Hope to.
Okay.
This is a quick question. Who are you guys presenting to next? Or do you know? Okay. Okay. And then who would we contact, like, if someone wanted you guys to present? Okay.
Are there any additional questions from the commissioners? Linnell? I do want to just thank all of you students so much for all of your guys' research. To think you guys compiled all that information in 1 month was both exhausting and exciting to hear. And I sat here oftentimes wanting to go back to school myself, because a lot of that research sounded quite fun and quite informative. Judging from all of this research, it sounds like the hope is for Salem to become an intercultural cities program. And if I recall the map correctly, that was shared, in one of the first slides, it doesn't seem like there's any on the West Coast. Is that correct? So Salem could quite literally be the first intercultural cities program on the West Coast.
Yes.
Okay, so then I guess my next question is, how do we make that happen? And how does the Human Rights Commission support you guys in that endeavor?
Hi, let me introduce myself. Joyce Millen. I'm an emeritus professor from Willamette University and have taught most of these students over the years. And I'm really proud of what they've just accomplished. So Shiv and I have worked together now for a few years, working with Gretchen Bennett with the ultimate goal of having Salem become an ICC city. So the students are sort of proof of concept that we can all collectively gather the information that the ICC requires for the index, and then we can take advantage of all of the resources that they have and the network they have throughout the world. So next steps, we don't know. We would love the Human Rights Commission to support this endeavor with the mayor's office and whomever else is needed to become an ICC city. I think that the city of Salem is absolutely primed for it. In answer to your question, Robert, we would be the first and only city on the West Coast to actually become an ICC city. So that could be excellent for Salem, and then Salem could be in a position to help other cities as well. Ultimately, the way I've always described this is preventive medicine. You know, the students presented a lot of the positive, and it's nice to focus on that. But we're in a position right now in Salem, given all of the changes, the demographic shifts that are occurring, we're in a position to actually do some prevention so that our city doesn't become like some other cities in the United States that don't handle their diversity well. We're in a position to prevent the social unrest that could occur if we don't do this groundwork. So I want to thank you on behalf of all of the students and the leadership team for allowing us to come and speak with you today. And we could definitely use your support in having Salem become an ICC city. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a few more things. I also see there's a hand raised. So my next question would be you, the last presenter. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names if I don't see the name 50 times in front of me. So I apologize for that. But there was a mention of some upcoming listening sessions. And I wanted to know, is that schedule something that you all would be comfortable sharing with the Human Rights Commission? And would you welcome members of the Human Rights Commission present at those listening sessions if they were available? Okay, well, you guys don't have to answer right now if you don't want to, but that is something to think about. I myself and quite a few members of the commission, I think we like being able to get out into the community and listening to it. We feel that it could be a good way for us to also be able to engage. I see there's a lot of crossover. We conduct an annual community belonging survey. And I see a lot of tie-ins from the results of that community belonging survey with a lot of the research that you guys have conducted and the findings that you guys have brought back to this commission so far. And I see that, and also to Linnell's point, there's a lot of crossover with the research that you guys have presented so far regarding immigrant populations and welcoming them, as well to just the citizens and community members and all walks of life. A lot of those barriers that you mentioned, everything regarding housing and communication and everything, also affect individuals living in poverty. And so to sit here and everything and say that it's not just immigrant populations and Salem would be fine without it is a complete falsehood. And so I see that the research that you guys have already done is really doing a great service to the community and to the city and to your fellow neighbors. And so if you guys aren't recognizing that now, you guys have done just a phenomenal job as students and everything, and really just changing the outlook of what Salem's going to look like next year and 5 years and 10 years and 15 years. So I'm really excited to see what you all do next, both in terms of, this project, but where you guys ultimately go in your careers and lives, because you guys are all so young and so far ahead, of a lot of your peers. And I'm really just excited to see how you all change the world. So thank you all for being here. I know that Gretchen had her hand up, so I will invite Gretchen.
Thank you, Vice Chair Marshall. And my name is Gretchen Bennett, and I'm on staff at the City of Salem. And I just wanted to help answer the question that you had about what's the next step. I feel grateful to the leadership, to Emeritus Professor Millen and to Shiv Ranjan and others who thoughtfully prepared a draft letter of intent that the city could consider, and a city official could sign that and that be submitted in for consideration to be a part of the ICC. I also want to appreciate them for locating and securing the funding. Should there be this opportunity to move forward, they would have the financial support to make that possible for us, so that's a huge gift. Drafting the letter, doing this proof of intent work, and identifying the funding that comes along with it. So I just want to appreciate where they are and explain the next step of the process, I have a responsibility to help get that letter of intent evaluated at the city.
Okay. And then what comes next, Director Bennett, after that letter is submitted from the city of Salem?
I actually might defer that to them. I think the ICC system needs a letter of intent from a city official or a government official to express interest. And then I'm going to turn it over to Shiv or Professor Emeritus Millen for more.
Okay.
So yes, as Gretchen Bennett said, the letter of intent is required from either a high-ranking city official or the mayor. And when I went over to the Council of Europe, I made contact with the ICC, and I have contacts there. And so I've been emailing back and forth with them, and they say once we send the letter over and they receive the funds, then they will send the people over to come and review the city and go through all the sectors, begin the index. So there's like no deliberation really on their end. They're ready. They have open arms and they're ready to accept us. So all it takes is the sending out of the letter, and then the ball begins rolling.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Commissioner Coleman?
This is a question for Gretchen. Would this have to go before council to be discussed?
That's a great question, and one that I think we're still thinking through. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, thank you all again so much. Please, if there's anything the Human Rights Commission can do to support your guys' further research, support the Intercultural Cities program, or really just anything the Human Rights Commission anything can do to support you all in your future academic endeavors and career endeavors, please don't hesitate to come back. Also, if you're looking to serve on a boards or commission, I encourage you all to do so. All of you are so smart, so knowledgeable, and you all have a lot of potential. So again, thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. With that said, we are going to move on to agenda item 5, which is community and project updates. So first, the Community Engagement Committee. So not much to really report back on the Community Engagement Committee. We have sunsetted that for now. We're really primarily focusing on developing a dashboard with the GIS team of the City of Salem to better present some of our findings from the community engagement, the community belonging surveys that are conducted, as well as reports of discrimination. So really anything, a lot of our efforts kind of shifted in that to that space to prepare and launch for some of our data visualization efforts. But I will pause there for any questions. And I also welcome any of the students to come up if you guys have any questions throughout these project updates as well. So, seeing none, we will move on to the Disability Rights Task Force. Again, I was hoping that Chair Lara Midkiff would be able to join us today. He's been chairing that task force. We met last month. We for a bit of background, the Disability Rights Task Force was formed, I want to say about 6 months ago. Is really nothing a way to analyze how the City of Salem could improve accessibility and livability for people experiencing, people living with disabilities in the City of Salem. So we've heard from a lot of city programs about the initiatives they've taken so far and where they think that they could improve in the space of improving access for individuals. We've also attended some listening sessions with various community groups. We attended a listening session at Sequoia Crossing, which is a permanent supportive housing permanent supportive housing unit in Northeast Salem in partnership with Salem Housing Authority and Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. A lot of those individuals residing there were chronically homeless. So we're able to kind of get their take on how the City of Salem can improve on disabilities. We've attended some listening sessions at the Salem Library, Center 50 Plus, to see how we can improve in the space of our aging population with disabilities, as well as the ROC, which is the Recovery Outreach Community Center here in Salem. And then Chloe, our intern, had presented a document at our last meeting with just some notes that she's compiled based off of those listening sessions and those presentations, as well as some recommendations that the task force might be able to look at, as well as potentially take to council for consideration. I do see Commissioner Roche has their hand up, but I do want to invite Chloe, if Chloe wanted to say anything else on the recommendations that she's presented or the document. I wanted to provide the opportunity for Chloe.
I'm Chloe. Not a lot of updates, still awaiting feedback on the current document. Anyone else that would back on the particular subjects that the suggestions are around. Waiting to hear back from people.
Thank you so much for that update, Chloe. I will turn it Commissioner Roche for a question.
She was going in and out and we literally missed every word. Do you want to do a quick summary?
Yes, I got a quick summary. Yeah, Chloe just mentioned that she's still waiting on some of the task force members' comments and recommendations into a document that she had shared. So once she gets that, she's waiting to compile that feedback into the existing document and then prepared to bring that back to the next task force. I do know that Chair Laird Midkiff wanted to be able to provide at least a top line by next meeting, which is December 3rd, on some of the recommendations or suggestions and anything we might be looking to present to council. So gonna stay tuned for that.
Okay. But my hand was raised because I wanted to ask if you could put me in contact with the chair of that task force for the disability rights, because that's one I'm interested in serving on.
Absolutely. I will get you in touch with Chair Laird Midkiff, and you two can discuss further. I do know, we're not quite sure the outcome of the Disability Rights Task Force. Initially, the chair had anticipated sunsetting that task force and everything at the end of this calendar year. However, with the recommendations and everything that had come in, the decision hasn't been made anything, whether or not anything we will sunset that commission and that task force, that we will consider continue that task force and then moving forward, and then reevaluate our date to bring recommendations to council. So we're kind of still in a holding pattern, if you will, for that. Any other questions regarding the Disability Rights Task Force update? All right. And agenda item 5C, the LGBTQIA plus committee. Chair Pressy wasn't able to join us tonight, but she did ask for me to talk about Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is occurring Thursday, November 20th, 2025 from 6 to 7 p.m. at Laux Auditorium, which is the auditorium that's connected to the Salem Public Library. Doors will open at 5:30. Transgender Day of Remembrance, the commission has had the honor of hosting this event for the last several years, and it's an opportunity for us to recognize and honor the lives of transgender individuals that have lost their lives, both due to attacks and suicide. And it's just really an opportunity to hold space and mourn those losses. So anybody's welcome to attend. It's a free event. So I have regarding that. Are there any questions about the LGBTQIA plus committee update or Transgender Day of Remembrance? I hope I made Commissioner Murray proud, because prior to Commissioner Pressey chairing that committee, Commissioner Murray coordinated that event. So hopefully I didn't mess that up too much.
Always, you always make me proud.
Thank you. Thank you. We will move on to agenda item 6, staff updates.
The only staff update is a reminder that the next HRC meeting is going to be a week earlier than normal. It'll be on December 3rd, right here in the same location, same bat time, same bat channel.
Thank you, Chris. Any member remarks or announcements? Anything the commissioners would like to share? I would also invite Dr. Brown or Linnell to provide any closing statements, but Commissioner Roche.
Maybe you were referencing this earlier. Did we were talking about getting that events thing, a shared doc where we could upload upcoming events. Is there any movement on that?
Yeah, so rather than a document for sharing community events or the community calendar, I think utilizing the member remarks and announcements section of the agenda would be more appropriate, generally because people have events / announcements they typically bring after the calendar has been published. So rather than publishing a calendar and then also discussing the events, we are utilizing this this member remarks and announcements space for that. So if you have any events that you'd like to share that are coming up.
Okay.
Please.
It's not an event, but I just wanted to raise awareness in case people are not familiar with the Willamette Family Medical Center over on Lancaster. It's a nonprofit clinic that does not refuse service regardless of the ability to pay, and 50% of their providers are bilingual, and I've just gotten to know them a little bit, and it's a really great service for those in our community, that especially the topic that has been at hand today.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. Anybody else have any remarks or announcements? Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah, just an announcement. With the holidays, I guess, officially upon us, a lot of organizations need volunteers just for different things, whether it's on Thanksgiving or throughout the holidays. So I encourage you all to try to donate a little bit of your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Sergeant Dowd. If you wouldn't mind, the folks on the online can't hear unless the people are speaking directly into the microphone.
Robert, you had asked me earlier when I was presenting on the bias crime update if I had any information about the strategic plan. I do have information. I don't want to keep everybody, and I don't want to interrupt where we're at in the agenda. If we would prefer to postpone that for next month's meeting.
No, we are towards the end of the agenda, and we still have time on the clock for that. And given the presentation, if you have some information that you'd like to share on the strategic plan, I think it would tie in quite a bit to some of the research that the students had done. So we'd like to hear that.
Yes, absolutely. I don't have a laptop available or anything to share, but on the Salem Police Department's transparency portal, you will find the newly published strategic plan. And that strategic plan is for the next 3 years, 25, 26, and 27. Chris is working on it for me. We're going to continue on the same path that we've been on for the last 3 years with the same 3 strategic initiatives, those being safety, trust, and excellence. So what we found also on the Salem Police Department's transparency portal, you'll find an analysis and some key findings that we've found after analyzing the last strategic plan that was in place from 22, 23, and 24. What we found is that we did a lot of things very well, and there's room for improvement in a lot of areas that we had set forth in our strategic plan. And so moving forward with the safety in mind, we have some objectives that we set and a couple initiatives within the overall safety objective. The first one, which is to reduce community violence, and through the Community Violence Reduction Initiative. And then underneath that, there's some goals and some strategies on how we're going to do that. Our intent is to reduce the risk of violence in neighborhoods, reduce the risk of violence for individuals, and then provide regular community updates. So those are the strategies. The second one that we're looking to do is reduce fatal and injury collisions. The goal obviously is to have fewer fatalities, traffic fatalities, over the next 3 years. The way that we're going to do that is by carrying out focused traffic enforcement, increase traffic safety education and awareness, and advocate for traffic engineering and safety improvements to the city's streets. So those are the main areas that we're looking to focus on as far as it relates to safety. I guess I'll pause in case anybody's got questions.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions from any of the commissioners for Sergeant Dowd?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Ballard. I do have some questions. Through our listening sessions on the Disability Rights Task Force, a couple of the things that we were going to include in the report, we're trying to make sure we were increasing education and awareness regarding left-hand turns. And also seeing what we can do about crosswalks in areas that we know are high traffic for seniors and persons with living with disabilities, as well as the unsheltered population. Is that something that that there are statistics on, that we know where those intersections are?
Yes, so our traffic control unit regularly does throughout the year multiple pedestrian crossing projects where we will set up opportunities to educate the public by having somebody cross the road and then conducting traffic stops on people that are not allowing people to safely cross, and then providing an education opportunity for those drivers. Understand the police department is more the enforcement arm of the city's government. And so we can have some influence if we're finding that there are areas where we're having an increase in traffic issues. We can talk with the city planners and the traffic folks to try to provide better engineering to provide more safer streets. But we're only a small part of that puzzle. And so I think it's going to take continued work through the chief and our upper officials to work with the rest of the city's government to try to put some change in place going forward as far as major engineering projects.
Okay, and how would we go about identifying intersections that we might consider high risk for the populations that we were talking to? Because the people who reported to us that they had been hit by vehicles didn't make reports.
Yeah, the one thing is we can only go off of the data and the information that we have available to us. The traffic control unit does have a tip line or a hotline. The sergeant over the traffic control unit compiles that data, takes it very seriously, and then that's where he selects the projects for future enforcement opportunities. And so he collects that information constantly of neighborhoods that are calling in to make complaint about speeding in certain neighborhoods, or people not yielding to pedestrians. And then he will select those intersections or those neighborhoods for future enforcement projects. And so encourage people, even if they don't make a report, like a police report, to work with the traffic control unit, make a report through the online reporting portal, so that he at least gets the data of where people are experiencing issues, so that he can make concerted efforts to do some enforcement projects in those areas.
Thank you.
Or if they don't feel comfortable, they can use you or the Disability Task Force to be the ones to help make those reports.
And that's part of the problem. I feeling comfortable reporting, but also having the ability to report, because people don't have phones, people don't have access to the internet.
Sure.
So how we need to identify those ourselves.
We'll still get letters in the mail if people want to write a letter. And if they can just drop it off, if they don't have the money for postage, if it can get delivered to the police department, any way that we can get the information. Obviously, we can compile data based on police reports, like we've responded to a crash at this intersection or in this neighborhood. Then that gives us some information to build data off of so that we can do some projects in those areas. But if we don't have the information, then it's hard to obviously do enforcement in those areas.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sergeant Dowd on traffic safety before we let him address the other items from the strategic plan?
And I want to
Seeing
be
none?
clear, traffic safety is one half. There's two
Yes.
major initiatives. The other one is reducing violence in neighborhoods into individuals. So we want to reduce the number of shootings, stabbings, and other violent crime that's occurring beyond just traffic safety. And so that's where we're going to continue the community violence reduction initiative that we started a couple summers ago. And we had the listening sessions, and we've been doing the neighborhood walks. And we want to continue that work to try to bring safety to everybody within the community, not just traffic safety, but safety across the board. We want to reduce violence within the community here in Salem.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Sergeant Dowd? I do have one or a few questions while you're up here because you had talked about your role in officer recruitment and retention, and we had listened to some really great research from these students from Willamette, and there seems to be a lot of space where officer recruitment, and they can tie in, especially into terms of some of their communications research they did, but as well as ensuring that a police force is representative of the communities that they're serving. And I wanted to know if you are comfortable or willing to speak anything on some of the initiatives that you've taken or your team has taken anything into recruiting a diverse police force that is representative of the current community, as well as what the community could look like 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
100%. I can tell you that the work that my office is doing in particular, and our recruiting team is doing, we're looking to bring qualified people who want to serve the community, that are representative of the community, into our police department. We're going out, we're recruiting in colleges and universities. We're partnering with the local high schools. We have a partnership with CTEC and their law enforcement program. We have a partnership with Lear, which is Shemeketa's law enforcement program. We're trying to recruit people all over Oregon and all over the United States that have an interest in becoming law enforcement officers that want to come in and serve the community. It's very difficult right now, Robert, I'll be honest with you. I took over and we had over 20 vacancies at the police department. We're currently sitting at 13 vacancies. And the recruitments of when I applied in 2009 to be a police officer, I showed up at South Salem High School and there were 350 people that showed up on day one for the physical fitness test. And there were 5 openings at that time. There was 350 of us that showed up for the physical fitness test. Anymore nowadays, I will open a recruitment, leave a recruitment open for 9 weeks, and I'll be lucky if I get 30 applications. And then those 30 applications, they have to meet minimum qualifications for the position. They have to come in, they have to interview, and then they go through our entire hiring process, which includes a background check and a psychological evaluation. And by the time we take that 30 people that applied, we get down to about 3 or 4 maybe people in a recruitment that's been open for 9 weeks. And those are nationwide recruitments that are put out on LinkedIn and all the other websites. Well, I don't particularly care, and I know that the chief doesn't care and the department doesn't care where you come from or what you represent. As long as you're willing to come in, you're willing to put in the work, you want to serve the community and you want to make the community better and safer, then that's what we want. We want people that want to do this job and they want to serve.
Thank you. I do have another question. I'm not sure if you can answer it or provide a rough estimate, but regarding some of the communication and interacting with our immigrant communities, do you know roughly what percentage of the workforce speak additional languages other than English?
I don't have a percentage for you, Robert. I can tell you that we've had an ASL interpreter that's been on with our department for almost 20 years. He came from Gresham originally. We have 2 or 3 other people that are ASL. We have 2 people, I believe, that speak Ukrainian. I think we have 2 people that speak Russian. We have, I'm just spitballing, I'm guessing, maybe 10 people that speak Spanish or some form of Latin language. We do have the availability to all of the officers, a language service that we can call and use when we get to the call. And the dispatch center also has that available. So if somebody calls in and the dispatch center is struggling to communicate with that person, they'll try their best to identify what their language is and then use an interpreter to help interpret what the need is, why they're calling 911, what emergency is occurring, so that we can send appropriate resources. And then when the officers arrive on scene, if we don't have an interpreter in whatever that person's language is, we have language services available to us so that we can better and more efficiently and effectively communicate with the person who's called. Obviously, we're limited to what is available to that language service. Not every language is always available. Maybe there's not an interpreter on at 2 o'clock in the morning, our time, on a Saturday. But we will try to make every effort possible because that's what we're in the business of doing, is serving people.
Thank you. Commissioner Roche.
Thank you, officer, for being here. I had a question that I ask for your grace in asking, and this might be a larger conversation for the committee. You know, the U.S. is a very desirable place for different cultures and different people to come to for a variety of reasons. A lot of it is our freedoms that we have. However, I do know that one of my friends has volunteered with an organization that works with refugees, and they've had officers come and speak to the refugees, educating them on what the laws are of our land and how in the land that they come from, it's okay if they are raped and they can't do anything about it. And to actually educate that people group saying that's not okay. And if you tell them no, that means no. And it was completely foreign to them. And so my question, I want to go as far as to say the word assimilation. However, when we're talking about our immigrant community, they're bringing all sorts of different cultural things that they grew up with that might vary from what the laws of our land are. So with all of that said, can you share a little bit about perhaps what the police force and the communication of how you guys maybe help educate the different nonprofits and the different people groups that work with others from other cultures, and how that impacts some of the dynamics you guys are experiencing within law enforcement?
Yes, absolutely. So historically, we have partnered with Salem for Refugees, and we have provided those education opportunities where a member of the police department, historically, it has almost primarily been Deputy Chief Aguilar, even back when she was Lieutenant Aguilar, but she has gone to those education sessions at Salem for Refugees and through the interpreters that are available there, tried to educate the people attending those classes and what the laws and customs are here in the United States, so that we can dispel any rumors and so that we can stop any violence that is occurring within their home, or at least set the record straight of what the norms and cultures are here in Salem and in the United States. That's just one of the things that we do. I know that there's other programs that we participate in, and I know that the chief makes a very concerted effort of going out and engaging with community groups and showing up to community celebrations and community meetings, to be a face and a representative of the police department, to try to educate the community on what the police department is and how we can be of assistance to everybody.
Thank you, Sergeant Dowd. Any other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Ballard?
Could you give us a little insight as to why it's so difficult to recruit people? Is it, is it because we're in Oregon? Is it because of the general culture towards police right now?
All of the above. I don't mean to make light of it, but it's very difficult to recruit because people don't want to become police officers right now. It's a very difficult career to find people that are interested in serving the community. It's a multitude of things that the national narrative, people are afraid that if they go out and serve the community with the best of intentions and they make a mistake, that they're going to be crucified, vilified, that they're going to be criminally charged, and they don't want to take that risk on. It just is not a very popular profession in today's day and age, and so it's very difficult to find people that have that calling and that are willing to step up and take on that challenge.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sergeant Dowd? Not, I have one. Sergeant Dowd, we spoke quite a bit this evening about intercultural initiatives and welcoming people and everything from all walks of life, as well as educating individuals and everything who may be new here to Oregon. Given the current climate and everything, in the increase of citizenship enforcement and everything through Immigrations Customs Enforcement and the Department of Homeland Security, could you or would you mind sharing the City of Salem's and everything stance and everything and upholding Oregon's sanctuary state laws here in our communities?
Yeah, I'd like to just do you one better. And on the transparency portal, the chief made an updated statement in January of 2025. And basically what the chief said in that statement was that we're going to stand behind the Oregon's sanctuary state laws, that if a federal law enforcement agency was to call for cover or backup, that we would respond to back them up in a safety standpoint. But the City of Salem and the Salem Police Department is not going to take an active role in any type of immigration enforcement, period. And that's been the case since I started as a police officer 15 years ago. We're not calling, we're not making reports, we're not sharing information other than what is plainly available in just a general police report. But we're not aiding the federal government in their enforcement because of the sanctuary state laws that exist.
Thank you. So just to clarify, just for some of the listeners who may be new to listening to some of our commission meetings, as well as our guests, you would say that anybody who feels that they're a victim of a crime and anything should contact Salem Police Department for assistance or anything, regardless of their other immigration status and anything, and seek that help from the police department.
100%. I would encourage them to, and I would hope that they would.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Sergeant Dowd. Are there any other questions for Sergeant Dowd this evening? Anything else you would like to share?
I'm going to cover the other two primary initiatives, if you would.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind giving us a top line of those, that'd be great.
I'll be real quick. So the next one that we talk about is building trust within the community. And that's something that's been a huge part of the chief's initiative since he took over. We've done multiple different things from our community police academy. We've done our procedural justice classes that we host and that we invite members of the community to come to. And so that's something that we're going to continue to do, is try to build trust within the community through being transparent, trying to put information out. We've taken a more active role in our social media, trying to put out information about the things that our agency is doing, the crimes that we're stopping, the calls that we're responding to, all of that stuff. And then again, the chief is going to continue to attend community meetings, make himself available. We're going to continue to partner with community partners and take an active role in showing that we are here and we are representative of the community. Most of the department lives within Salem, and we represent the community in that way. And so we just want to show the community that they can trust us. We want to encourage the community to come forth, report crimes to us, because that allows us to be effective. In order for us to stop crime or reduce crime, we have to have a community that feels trustworthy of the police department and is willing to come forth and make those reports. And so the initiative is a trust building culture. The goal would be to integrate procedural justice into everyday interactions through effective policies, practices, training, and performance evaluations and accountability measures. And then further applying those procedural justice policies and practice and training. So every new recruit class that comes in, we schedule them to go through the procedural justice classes that we host that are also outward facing to the community. It's important for those new hired officers to have interaction with members of the community, make themselves available for the community to ask questions and to share their experience, even though it's limited because they're new employees. We also encourage tenured employees to show up to those procedural justice classes and share their insights about things that they've seen and experienced over their longer careers. The other part is that we're going to continue those community connections I talked about, and the goal would be to increase the staff availability to go to community engagement opportunities. Obviously, you know that when I worked with the Community Action Unit, that was a huge part in what we did. We partnered with many of the youth groups around town. We did stuff with the YMCA, the Boys and Girls Club, and we tried to interact with the youth in our community. That's something that we're going to continue to do. Obviously, I know everybody is aware of some of the staffing issues that we're facing as an agency. And so with more people, that would free up more officers and make more officers available to participate in those community events. And then the community conversations, again, the chief and the assistant chief and the deputy chiefs are going to continue to attend these community gatherings, open themselves up and make themselves available for those community questions and conversations. I'll pause there because before I get into the next one.
I feel like we got off on a tangent the last time we paused. So if you want to go ahead with the next one, and then we will take questions at the end.
The last one is excellence, and we want to do excellence both internally and externally. And so the way that we want to do that is we want to focus on trying to provide a place that is warm and welcoming and does a great job of making our people feel valued. And so continuing with those objectives. So the first one that we talk about here is communicate broadly and effectively. And then there's some strategies in there about collaborate with educational institutions. So continuing to go out and do recruiting events at Western Oregon and at Willamette and in Oregon State and at Chemeketa, and trying to provide opportunities for those educational institutions to ask questions of the police department, and then showcase the benefits of a Salem Police Department career. And then the next one is enhance employee retention and professional development. And the way that we're going to do that is through continued push of employee wellness. And then the last portion there is career development projects. So getting officers involved in projects that are going to not only help their personal career, but that are going to also benefit the community. And so giving, some may call it a passion project, but giving officers something that they're excited about and that they can dive into. That was one thing that came about. Travis Brossard, who worked on the Community Action Unit with me, he was one of the original founders and starters of one of our youth initiative programs. And he was taking youth that were at risk and that were struggling, and he was multiple times throughout the month was doing events where they could come to the police department and they could do different things, whether it be playing video games or working on maintenance and fixing up of bicycles, or they would go and pay for these youth to go to the trampoline park, and the officers would go and jump on the trampolines with the kids. But just engaging with the community, because and the youth community in particular, because they're so important to make positive interactions with our youth so that they feel comfortable coming to police, and so that they're steered towards a better path than maybe a path of crime and a path of violence. And so projects like that are things that we're going to continue to prioritize over the next 2.5 years.
Thank you, Sergeant Dowd. Are there any questions for Sergeant Dowd? Commissioner Ballard.
You've mentioned a lot of them in what you've said so far, but could you give us an idea of what kind of other things that police officers might do once they are recruited, besides chasing down criminals?
Well, so our primary role as police officers is to respond to calls for service. That is the number one thing that police officers do. And so with a depleted workforce or staff, that is where we're prioritizing all of our new officers, is that they will go to the road, and for probably their first 2 years of being a police officer, they will learn how to be a police officer, and then they will go out there and they will respond to calls for service. Because we're a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365 days a year operation. And so that is going to be where we're going to focus the majority of our attention with these new hires. We do have investigative units that have specialties, our special victims unit and our violent crimes unit, our felony crimes unit, and our strategic investigations unit. And I'm sure everybody's aware, but we've recently plussed up our homeless services team, and it's now 4 officers so that we have 7-day-a-week coverage. So those are all things that we're trying to do to work in the community, better the community, and serve the community. But at the end of the day, our primary function has to be responding for calls for service, because if there's not enough of us and somebody calls in an emergency and we can't get there, I don't want to have to look somebody's family in the eye because we couldn't get to their house and respond in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sergeant Dowd? Okay, Sergeant Dowd, I want to thank you so much for, really your commitment to the city of Salem as a police officer, but then also your commitment to serving as the liaison to the Human Rights Commission, and also for preparing a presentation right off the cuff regarding the strategic plan. I was not aware that it was just put in there as kind of as a bookmark and not a presentation. So I appreciate you spending this evening putting together a quick presentation for that, as well as just answering all of our questions. I feel like every time we've had the opportunity to engage with you, there's always questions or anything that sometimes steer away from the agenda and anything. You're always welcome to answer those and to educate about the commission as well as our audiences. And so I appreciate you always being available to us in that regards. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to at least talk on the strategic plan here at the end. I encourage anybody that has any other questions or they want to know more about the Salem Police Department to check out our transparency portal. There's a lot of great information on there, stuff that comes directly from the chief. And it's in his words, and you're not getting a game of telephone, if you will, where it's being relayed through multiple people. So please check out our transparency portal.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any final closing remarks from the commission? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and conclude tonight's commission meeting. Have a wonderful night, guys.
Oh, yeah. It's a pleasure meeting you. Thank you. Yeah, anything we can do to set the house or even video on the visions.